Well, hello, friends and neighbors. Dr. Ken Berry here. Going to be hanging out with you for the next hour or so, discussing a proper human diet and talking about the carnivore baby controversy. I've got all the articles and videos pulled up that if you're watching on TikTok, you won't be able to see them, but you'll be able to hear them. But if you're watching anywhere else, you'll actually be able to see the videos and see the articles when I pull them up. And I had no idea that I was going to stir up such a hornet's nest by telling the truth and just stating nutrition and dietary facts. But evidently, people don't like facts. They want to believe in fantasy. They want to believe that plant-based diets and vegan diets are completely nutritionally complete, which is just not true at all. And so I'm going to be talking about that. I'll take some questions from you guys for sure. If you know anybody who has a baby, a toddler, a child, an adolescent, a teenager, you might want to share this video with them, because we're going to be talking about feeding meat and eggs to all ages of human children. Gasp, right? Like, oh, you're going to feed meat to that baby human? Oh. You would have thought that I had said, let's give the baby some crack to smoke. I'm not sure what's going on. So first of all, in the comments, tell me where you're watching from, what city, what state, what country. I want to see where everybody's at in the world. And that helps me to kind of frame the conversation and know what to talk about. So tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? What city, what state, what country? Oh, we got somebody from New Zealand already. Beautiful. I love it. What time is it in New Zealand? Shouldn't you be in bed? There's a fellow Tennessean. Hello, neighbor. Michigan, Kansas, Australia. Shouldn't you be in bed right now, Australia? I don't know what time it is. I know it ain't the same time it is here in the woods of Tennessee. That's for sure. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys watching, and I'm going to walk you through this. Let's see. Yeah. So first of all, here's the Wall Street Journal article that appeared, I think, a couple of days ago. August the 12th. So two days ago. Meet the parents raising carnivore babies. And it goes into a lot of detail, and it was actually quite a fair article. They interviewed us for this article and some other carnivore parents as well a few weeks back, and then they called Nisha back for a second interview. The interviewer really liked Nisha, which I can't blame them. I really like Nisha too. And so if you scroll down the article, there's a picture of Bonnie Blue eating a carnivore bar, and a picture of Beckett couple of years ago eating his bacon and sausage. And the Wall Street Journal article was fairly balanced. I was quite pleased, actually. I was afraid that it was going to be a hit job. It's already got 543 comments on it. And I was afraid it was going to be a hit job. I was afraid that they were going to try their best to just besmirch us and smear us and act like we were some kind of psycho. I don't know. I mean, I guess sort of like a tree hugging crunchy, but the opposite of that. What would you call somebody who's a tree hugging, crunchy mom, but they eat meat and eggs instead of granola? I don't know what the term for that would be. If you can think of a term, put it in the comments. But so that was the beginning of it. 2 days ago, that came out in the Wall Street Journal. And then, we got some feedback. We had people, email us and text us, be like, "Oh, I saw you in the Journal." A couple of our friends who live in New England states, a couple of people in the UK said, "Oh, hey, we saw you in the Wall Street Journal. That's really cool." And we thought the article was pretty fair and balanced. And then yesterday, NBC News reached out to us, and they said, "Hey, we want to interview you about this carnivore babies thing. We saw the Wall Street Journal article, and we want more information about this." And so we did the interview with NBC News, and I'm going to play that for you in a minute. But I want to know, everybody watching right now, do you think that if feeding your baby meat and eggs, do you think that's dangerous? Tell me in the comments. Is that dangerous? Is that nutritious? Is that healthy? Is it maybe okay, maybe not okay? I really want to know what your thoughts are in the comments, because you'll see here in a minute that there were a lot of people that lost their minds. So we got a few people saying no in the comments. Somebody said, I don't know what your handle means. Hell no. Here's another no. Here's another not at all. And then here's a not dangerous. Here's a healthy. It's good for them. Healthy. No, it's healthy. I do not think it's dangerous. Healthiest diet you can feed them. I tend to kind of agree with that. But there was a lot of people who thought that it was not healthy at all. And so let me pull up the NBC article and you can see what you think about that. It was actually a video. So let me share my screen here, and here it is right here. I'm going to scroll through this guy because he's just.
Here's Emily.
New way of life can provide some
Okay.
That first taste of beef can provide some comic relief, but for others, it's a new way of life. As more parents bring the so-called carnivore diet to their kids, snacking on bone broth popsicles, teething on deer jerky, chowing down on a beef bar.
You cut it in long, thick slices.
Nutrition influencers Nisha Salisbury and husband Dr. Ken Berry feed their children 90.
So they didn't mention that Nisha's a nurse, registered nurse, and they didn't mention I'm board certified, still licensed practicing physician. It was just influencers there. I thought that was kind of funny.
Animal source products with some fruit after finding their own success on the diet.
The mental clarity, the energy, that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously I want that for myself, and why wouldn't I want that for my kids too?
But some pediatricians are raising serious concerns about what's not in meat-heavy lifestyles.
Unprocessed meat and eggs are actually great sources of nutrients that young children need, including iron, zinc, and B12. But it's not the only nutrients that kids need. The two things that I'm really concerned about are vitamin C and fiber.
So here's a well-meaning pediatrician. I'm sure she's an excellent doctor. I'm sure she has nothing but the best intentions in her heart. But she has no idea that fresh meat has vitamin C in it. She does not know that fact. She thinks that you can only get vitamin C from oranges and citrus fruit. And she thinks that fiber is an essential nutrient, that if without fiber, I guess you just get sick and die. Although there are over 1 million carnivores around the world eating a carnivore diet, including thousands of carnivore babies and children and teenagers who are doing great on a zero fiber diet.
The American Academy of Pediatrics emphasizes variety, and within a few months of starting solid foods, letting your baby have everything from milk to cereal, vegetables, fruits, eggs, fish, and meat.
Are you concerned that such restrictions may decrease their palate or interest in other kinds of foods throughout their life?
I hope so. I hope it decreases their consumption of things that aren't truly good for their bodies.
As the latest diet trend is feeding new questions and concerns. Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
All right. So I thought that was also fairly balanced. They had a rebuttal doctor, which is totally fine. I think you should do that anytime you talk about a health issue regarding human health. And I love Nisha's answer when she said, aren't you worried that their palate won't develop and then they won't like other foods when they're grown up? And she's like, I hope so. I hope they never develop a taste for ding dongs and honey buns and Lucky Charms and chocolate milk and orange juice. I hope they never develop a taste for that, because that's not good for them. Thought that was a brilliant answer. So that was step 2 in this controversy. And then last evening, Fox News reached out to me and they said, hey, we want to interview you about this carnivore diet for babies thing. we saw your article in the Wall Street Journal and we want to interview you about that. And I'm like, sure. And so this morning I interviewed with Fox News, and it's not a very long interview. It's about, I don't know, 45 seconds or something. And so I'm going to share that with you in a second. But I want you to tell me first in the comments, do you think this was, so these two so far fairly balanced? I was pretty happy with the coverage. I never mind if they have somebody who rebuts what we have to say. I think that's totally fine. But just wait till we get to the Fox News. That's where it gets interesting. Do you think it was fair and balanced so far, or do you think it was a little bit slanted in their coverage? Yeah, so here's somebody, Brenda says, oh my God, you don't give them cereal? Oh no. So Brenda, let's talk about this, because I understand that if you've never really heard about the carnivore diet, if you've never studied human nutrition, then it sounds weird. It sounds like a fad. It sounds like some strange thing. And Brenda, just the thought of not giving babies Cheerios and Fruit Loops and, Lucky Charms for snacks and maybe for their entire meal for breakfast, that breaks Brenda's brain. She's like, that's what babies are supposed to eat. So Brenda, I love you, Brenda. I'm not picking on you. I am using it as an example, though. This is an example of somebody who's completely propagandized by all the advertisements she's seen in her life. She's probably seen 50,000 cereal commercials in her life, just like many of you have. Since you were a tiny child watching Tony the Tiger commercials, and if you grew up before, I'd say, I don't know, the 2000s, in the morning when you were eating your cereal for breakfast, like many of us did, you were doing the little puzzle on the back, or you were trying to dig down in the box and get the surprise out. Brenda's blown away, like, oh my God, why would you not give your children cereal? Well, first of all, Brenda, there's multiple reasons, but I'll just go through a few and then we'll watch the Fox interview. Brenda, every cereal on the cereal aisle in the grocery store, in the supermarket, is full of glyphosate. If you wanted to eat the food in the supermarket that has the highest levels of glyphosate, it would be on the cereal aisle. Did you know that? Been multiple studies about this. And so, yeah, we don't want our kids to eat glyphosate. That's number one. Number two, what are the cereals made of? Either wheat, rice, oats, or corn. These are all poverty foods, Brenda. These are the foods that you eat if it's either eat this or starve to death. Then humans all through all the ages, anytime they were on the verge of starvation, they would eat the wheat, rice, oats, corn, beans, soybeans, peas. Yeah, you definitely eat that. If you're so poor you can't afford meat, then you eat the wheat, rice, oats, and corn. Now, what about nutrition? I'm assuming Brenda thinks that cereals are very nutritious. So, Brenda, you understand that they have to actually fortify cereals, which means they have to add vitamins and minerals to the cereal, right? Do you know why they do that? It's because wheat, rice, oats, and corn don't contain any meaningful vitamins and minerals at all. It's basically like eating sugary cardboard with glyphosate. And so, no, Brenda, they have never. Beckett is almost 6. Bonnie just turned 3. They have never, ever eaten cereal. Not a single time. They don't even know what cereal is. Now, I'm hoping that Brenda was being sarcastic. That's what Nisha just yelled and told me. So I hope so, Brenda. But I guarantee you there's many people watching this who are not being sarcastic. They're like, you don't give your kids Cheerios? Cheerios are the most wholesome. No, Cheerios have the highest level of glyphosate of any cereal, because when they're harvesting the oats, they actually spray the entire crop with glyphosate. It's called desiccation. They desiccate it or dry up the harvest before they harvest it. And then do you think after they got the oats off the stem, do you think they get down and wash each little individual oat and get the glyphosate off of it? No, I'm sure they rinse them, but you can't get all the glyphosate because some of it soaks in. And so, no, neither of our children have ever eaten a single bowl of cereal their entire life. Thank you for the question, Brendan. I apologize if you were being sarcastic. but it's a good comment for me to riff on nonetheless. Okay, are you guys ready to watch the Fox News where they interviewed? It was just me and it was live, so they couldn't edit it. So they had to let me say what I said. And they did not have an expert on at that time to rebut me. But then later on in the day, they did have Dr. Siegel, who's one of their senior medical advisors. And let's watch their interview with me first, and then we'll see what Dr. Siegel has to say. And I think you're going to love what he has to say, and maybe even love my rebuttal of his rebuttal even more. Let's see if I can find... Yes, here we go right here. Okay, we're going to share this. So this is my interview this morning.
Controversial diet trend. It's taking off on social media, but not just there. The parents of carnivore kids say they've swapped traditional baby foods like pureed fruits and veggies for an all-animal-based approach. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. And one child on the carnivore diet eats bits of eggs, shredded cheese, yogurt, and pureed ground beef and chicken liver. She licks butter off a spoon and gets bone broth in her bottle. The toddler, who has 4 teeth, likes to gum ribeye and lamb bones. Some doctors are worried carnivore kids won't get enough vitamins if they cut out whole food groups. And Dr. Ken Berry is a board-certified family physician and the creator of the Proper Human Diet. So thank you so much for being here. I was reading all of this last night and this morning. So I grew up out west. My family is cattle ranchers. This sounds very similar to how I grew up, although I don't remember gnawing on any bones. Is this what you're suggesting, just going back to how we used to do things, or is this a whole new approach?
That's exactly right, Dana. America has a big ultra-processed junk food problem, and carnivore babies is not a new fad. This is actually the original way that humans fed their babies 100 years ago, 500 years, 5,000 years ago. The first foods for a baby when it was ready to wean off the breast was meat, was gnawing on a bone. One of the best things we did for our kids when they were teething and having that pain is we would put rib bones in the freezer and get one out, and they would gnaw all the connective tissue and meat remnants off the bone. It was delicious, and it helped soothe the teething pain. Eating meat, feeding meat to your baby, that's not a new trend. That's the oldest way that humans have always fed their babies.
Okay, one of the things I want to point out here, I'm going to put a list up of some of the benefits to carnivore kids. Okay, essential amino acids, healthy fats, you get the vitamins, you say, B12 and A, minerals, iron and zinc. And I think this is also very interesting, preserving an insulin sensitivity and setting a healthy metabolic trajectory.
Yes. Now, so I'm going to stop it right there because I think that's really, obviously the meat and the eggs are full of vitamins and minerals. They're full of amino acids and fatty acids, all of which your baby who's growing very, very quickly, they need the building blocks. They need that, right? Also, babies have a very tiny stomach. And if you fill that stomach up with cereal, whether it's like the infant toddler cereal or with Cheerios, that stuff is nutrient void. And so you filled up their tiny stomach with something that really doesn't have much nutrition at all. Whereas instead, you could have filled that tiny belly up with meat and eggs, which are chock full of nutrient density. So which one do you think is going to help the baby's brain grow and develop? Which one do you think is going to help the baby's body grow and develop? It's the meat and eggs, of course, because they have way more nutrition. If you compare meat and eggs to cereal, the meat and eggs have 10x the nutrition. 10x, easy. Pureed vegetables, which are usually cooked to death in the factory, and then they add some salt and sometimes some sugar, so you better read the ingredients. Still, the meat and eggs are 2 times or 3 times as nutritious, way more vitamins and minerals. And then the stewed vegetables, the vegetable puree is not going to have any meaningful amino acids or any meaningful fatty acids at all, both of which your baby's brain and body need. But what about, are we not setting our babies up for success when we feed them meat and eggs? Because as you all know, we have an epidemic in the United States and indeed all across the world of type 2 diabetes, of metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, obesity, fatty liver, and other metabolic associated conditions. All these are caused by eating too many carbohydrates, too much sugar. That's what causes these diseases. And that's why the 1 million people who are eating a carnivore diet right now, if they started carnivore with one of those conditions are healing and going away because the default setting for your body is healthy. So Beckett and Bonnie, as a 3-year-old and a 5.5-year-old, we're not setting them up for diabetes or fatty liver. By feeding them meat and eggs, we're protecting them from fatty liver disease. Let's see what else.
For life. Now, this isn't without controversy because this is 2025 and everything is controversial. So let me just read to you a couple of things and have you respond. Some pediatricians are concerned. They say that the rise of animal-heavy diets for infants and toddlers concerns them and perplexes them. Some parents say they're inspired by social media stars, a handful of doctors who are raising their own carnivore babies. Rising interest in protein and concerns about ultra-processed foods are causing some people to look at carnivore-style diets. And again, they just say that they're very concerned.
Yes.
So how would you address their concerns? Are they valid?
Well, no, many doctors have been very concerned about many things. We remember what happened in 2020, right? Meat is the most nutrient-dense food you can feed your baby. There's a long list of nutrients, vitamins and minerals, fatty acids, amino acids that only meat provides. B12 is a great example, iodine, carnosine, carnitine, creatine. The list goes on and on and on. And we've all been kind of health washed to falsely believe that you can only get lots of vitamins and minerals by eating vegetables. But when you compare the nutrition in meat to the nutrition in vegetables, the vegetables always lose. And plus, young children never like vegetables. And I think there's probably a reason for that. Every young child loves meat and they love berries and fruits. They're going to get all the vitamin C they need and all the fiber they need.
So you're good with berries and fruits.
Sure, yeah, because those are also naturally occurring things that humans have been eating for thousands of years. What's not natural is the little puffs and the little treats that big food makes and tries to then tell us and propagandize us into believing is actual human food. It's not. It's a product. It's a commodity. You should never put that junk in your kid's mouth.
Okay, Dr. Berry, let me ask you one other thing. Does it matter where you get the meat, how it's raised? Should you be looking at that?
It matters a little bit, but for people with limited means, just remember this truism. Any meat is better than no meat. There is no such thing as a proper human diet for a human of any age that does not contain meat and eggs. They are essential. They're the bedrock of the human diet.
Well, this is good news for me. This is how I like to eat. Thank you so much, Dr. Ken Berry.
A lot of people. Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it and hope we'll have you back someday.
All right, so that was the Fox News interview. So I felt like that went very well. I've watched it back several times. I've looked for any errors that I made, any misstatements, any factual errors, and I don't see any. I would debate anybody that every single thing I said in that interview was absolutely factual. I can provide hundreds of citations in nutrition research, in archaeological research, in anthropological research, and in paleoanthropological research to back up every single thing I said in that Fox News interview. So do you think that did I get the message across? Whether you're low carb or keto or carnivore, you know that meat that just has to be in the human diet. If you're going to have optimal health, whether you're an adult who's 57, whether you're an adult who's in your 30s, 20s, whether you're a teenager, a child, a toddler, or an infant that has 2 or 3 little teethers and is ready for solid food. Meat and eggs have to be part of your diet, or you're never going to develop the best body you can develop or the best brain you can develop. I think that is self-evident. Sorry. Okay. Now, in just a second, so I think that probably it caused such a hullabaloo at Fox News and they got so much blowback. I'm sure the Harvard School of Nutrition called them and said, what the hell, this Dr. Berry, he's crazy. He's a YouTube doctor. And Tufts School of Nutrition called and said, well, we don't agree with that. You need to have somebody on there to rebut that crazy redneck. And so they dug around and they found Dr. Siegel, who's he's one of their senior medical advisors. And I know probably half of you guys never watch Fox News, but if you do watch Fox News, you may remember Dr. Siegel back from the 2020 catastrophe fiasco, and that he got a bunch of things exactly wrong back in 2020. And so let me first, so he's a board certified internal medicine doctor. Now, what does that mean? If you don't know, internal medicine specialists only see adults. They don't see children, never see infants or toddlers, ever. Whereas I'm board certified in family medicine. And so I see everybody from the baby before it's born and deliver the baby all the way up until people are 110 years old. That's how I was trained, is to take care of from the cradle to the grave, is one of the old expressions. And so, I mean, I'm very familiar with fetal anatomy and physiology, baby anatomy and physiology, and toddler anatomy and physiology, and then all the way through to an adult. Very, very familiar with that. I've studied it extensively. And then also, since when I started digging into nutrition research about 10 years ago, I have kids. And so immediately, me as a parent was like, okay, but what about kids though? Maybe keto is very healthy for adults, but what about kids? I mean, don't kids need cereal? I don't know. Let me look into that. And so the more I researched this, the more I found that there are multiple cultures all over the world, since for the last 10,000 years, where babies have been fed only meat and milk, or only meat and eggs, or only meat, depending, fatty meat in very many cases. In many cases, the very first bite of solid food was meat. There are many cultures where the grandmother or the aunt will, when the baby is first starting to wean, she'll give the baby little bits of animal fat. And the mythology was that it helps the baby's brain develop. And I think that the grandmothers and aunts had figured that out through thousands of years of trial and error. And that's why their grandmother taught them. And then they were putting that bit of animal fat in their little granddaughter or grandson's mouth, is because they knew it would help their brain develop. This is well documented in the anthropological literature. And so they dug up Dr. Siegel, who never sees babies. I'm not even sure he sees patients at all. I know he teaches at some university somewhere. But you can tell just right off the bat, this guy doesn't know a damn thing about human nutrition. He has not. He probably got the same amount of nutrition training I got in medical school. But the difference between him and me is that I kept studying nutrition the entire time, because, you know, the human body's built out of what you eat. And so therefore, it's probably pretty damn important what you eat. And so I kept studying nutrition, not just in adults, but also in teenagers and adolescents and toddlers and in infants. And so I'm going to play for you what he had to say about what I had to say. And I think that any of you guys who are low carb, keto, or carnivore, while you're listening to Dr. Siegel, you're going to be sitting there shaking your head going, poor Dr. Siegel. Why did he even open his mouth? Because that's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard in my life. But don't make a judgment yet. I want you to watch what he has to say. And then I want you to tell me in the comments what you think about what he had to say. Let's see. Here it is. All right.
All right, my favorite myth buster when it comes to health,
Myth
Dr.
buster.
Mark Siegel, Fox News senior medical analyst. He's absolutely right. This is nothing new. And hey, I'm all for anything that keeps our babies from getting hooked on sugar, carbs, and all sorts of processed foods. What's your take on carnivore kids?
Well, I think it's bad, Harris, and I think it's bad for kids. And I like the picture in the Wall Street Journal that shows a baby grabbing for a lamb chop, because I think it's making the point that it's an addiction. Food.
Dr. Siegel thinks that babies get addicted to meat, even though meat is the oldest documented food that human babies have ever eaten. He thinks it's bad, and he thinks it's because the babies get addicted to meat. Sorry to interrupt.
Food is an addiction.
Oh.
And I agree with RFK Jr. that we have to get away from ultra processed foods because they're tasty for a reason. They got salt, they got sugar, they got fats, they're addicting. And then you can't get off them. But the same thing is true with this. If you start with a lot of red meat when you're little, okay, look, you get plenty of protein that way. And you get plenty of iron that way, but you don't get your vitamin C that way. You don't get your vegetables that way. You don't get your antioxidants, and it's a high inflammation diet, which means.
So you don't get vitamin C that way. Again, Dr. Siegel, I'm sure he means well, but he has no idea that fresh meat has vitamin C, and he has no idea that liver pate, liver mousse, liver ground up into ground beef to make paleo patties. He has no idea liver contains vitamin C. He thinks in order to get any vitamin C, you've got to drink orange juice or eat a citrus fruit or eat some, maybe he knows that there's some vitamin C in some of the fruits. He has no idea what he's talking about. And then phytonutrients, give me a list of the essential phytonutrients, Dr. Siegel. List them out for me. Hint, there's none. None of the phytonutrients are essential, meaning if you never eat them for the rest of your life, you will not get sick, you will not suffer, you will not die prematurely because they're not essential.
Means later on, when you get to be an adult, you end up with heart disease, you end up with cancer, you end up with diabetes, and you end up with obesity.
So he thinks that meat is inflammatory. Again, we've disproven this with the tens of thousands of anecdotal cases of people who had severe inflammation and went on a carnivore diet to cure the inflammation. But he still thinks that eating meat is inflammatory. And he also thinks that if you eat red meat, that it's going to cause heart disease and cancer and diabetes later in life. So you can tell that Dr. Siegel, I'm sure he's a nice fellow. I'd like to meet him in person one day. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. All he's doing is repeating stuff he's heard, that just truisms. Oh, red meat causes cancer. Red meat causes diabetes. This is ridiculous. He doesn't even have a clue what he's talking about. I guarantee you, if I were able to magically pop into the studio when he was in there and say, Dr. Siegel, give me a list of citations of studies that show that eating red meat causes you to develop diabetes, type 2 diabetes. He would be like, oh, whoa, I mean, everybody knows that. No, Dr. Siegel, no, people don't know that. People are waking up and not just blindly believing the frivolities that Harvard School of Public Health has been putting out in Tough School of Nutrition. Nobody's believing that shit anymore. Okay? It's time to go back to the drawing board, Dr. Siegel. What I would suggest you do initially is next time they ask you to comment on carnivore or keto or low carb or the line diet, you need to be honest, like I've done many times in the past, and say, I don't know about that. I'm going to have to do some research on that. I'm going to have to learn about that. I wasn't taught nutrition in medical school, and I haven't spent the last 7 or 8 or 9 years studying human nutrition. So I don't have an opinion on that. I'm sure not going to just repeat the truisms that I heard on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC. I'm not going to repeat, red meat causes diabetes, without looking it up and saying, are there any research studies that show that red meat causes diabetes? And the answer, hint, is no. There's not a single study that shows either causation between eating lots of red meat and developing type 2 diabetes. And there's no studies that can even purport to show the physiology. What's the steps? How does that work? The only people that believe that eating red meat causes diabetes is vegans, Dr. Siegel. Nobody else believes that, my friend. Okay? Eating red meat does not cause heart disease. There is no research showing causation. Red meat is definitely not inflammatory, Dr. Siegel. If that were the case, then people who eat nothing but red meat, like me, I would be so inflamed. My joints would be so painful. My gut would be so inflamed. My skin, I would have psoriasis and eczema and acne and every other skin condition. My skin I'm 56 years old. My skin would look like I'm 76 years old if red meat were truly inflammatory. So I don't want to be disrespectful to Dr. Siegel. I think he's probably a very good internal medicine doctor, and he should stick to just talking about things that have anything to do with adult medicine. But when it comes to human nutrition, particularly the nutrition of babies and toddlers and children and teens, he doesn't even know about baby medicine, much less baby nutrition. He doesn't know the first thing about toddler medicine, much less toddler nutrition. I don't know if he even sees patients anymore, but if he does, if somebody brought their 2-year-old in to see Dr. Siegel, his front office woman would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Dr. Siegel doesn't see children." But yet he's going to have an opinion on national TV about what diet you should feed your toddler or your baby or your child. Yeah. So they should probably have done a little better at picking their expert.
This is a very bad diet to get addicted to as a kid. And yes, the word is addiction.
So again, I'm not sure where he gets this from. So the solid foods, there's really 5 things that human babies have been doing. Human babies, human toddlers, human children. They've been breathing air. They've been drinking water when they're old enough to be weaned off the breast. Before that, they drank milk from their mother's breast. They play in the sun and they eat meat. Those are the things that human children have been doing since we've been on this planet. But he's saying meat is addictive. I've never even heard vegans come at me with that argument. I don't even know where the hell he gets that. And he said this is the 3rd time that he said all this red meat is addictive, and he emphasized the word addict. I mean addiction. Where is this? Does anybody know where this is coming from? Has anybody read any nutrition research that shows that red meat is addictive? I'm afraid that they just called him up and said, "Hey, we'd like to do a segment with you about this carnivore babies thing. We got to go live in 5 minutes though." And he didn't have any time to think about it or prepare. That's really the only thing that makes any sense. Because saying that, I get it. It's a very popular opinion to say that red meat's inflammatory. There's still lots of doctors out there that if you say that, they're going to be like, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. Right? Or even if you say red meat's going to cause heart disease or colon cancer, the average doctor is going to be like, yeah, I've heard that. I've read that. Yeah. Not knowing that there's no research that proves that. Or that red meat's inflammatory. They're like, yeah, lots of red meat causes gout, which is not true, but a lot of doctors still believe that. But that red meat's addictive? Dr. Siegel, I'm at this moment issuing you a cordial invitation. Please come on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to give you plenty of time to prepare, Dr. Siegel. I'll give you a week or 2. You can go back to the drawing board and look up everything and get your citations in order. I want you to come on my channel, and I want you to explain to me with research-backed citations how red meat is addictive for babies. Okay? You also can't prove that red meat is inflammatory or that it causes cancer or that it causes heart disease. And definitely you can't prove that it causes diabetes. But I invite you, and I will be cordial and collegial. I will not attack you. I will not allow people to attack you in the comments. We'll turn the comments off. And I want you to explain to my audience exactly how red meat is addictive for children, for babies, for toddlers, for any human of any age. I really need to understand what the hell you're talking about here, because I currently do not understand what you are talking about here.
So just moderation, though. I mean, I used to do this to some degree with the baby food processor. I'd put steak in there and give it to my kids, but I'd have other things on the plate.
Well, that's the point. I'm not against it at all. I'm against it as a carnivore diet. I like the idea of high protein, and I don't think we should be against it.
So it's almost like it's fine to give babies red meat. He just said that. But don't call it a carnivore diet, because that's addictive. He just said that red meat's a great source of iron and protein. And he's fine with it being in the baby's diet, but it can't be meat and eggs can't be the only thing, because then it's somehow magically addictive. I am confusion.
Meat in kids, but I don't like the idea of it being a mainstay of diets. I'm much more the idea of getting kids on vegetables early and fruits, so that when they go to school, they recognize a vegetable. Hey, I think I'll have a strawberry. I had that at home.
Okay. Some parents are very.
All right, that's the end of that. Then they transitioned to talking about something else. Okay, so now you're up to date on the carnivore babies controversy, and I really want to hear your comments in the comments. I want. Does anybody know? Maybe you've got an argument that meat is addictive. Does anybody? I'm looking at the comments right now. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever heard that meat is addictive before? I mean, I have heard hours. I've watched hours of vegan doctors on YouTube trying to understand their arguments. And then they'll make a point, and I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I'll research that, and I would go and spend hours researching what they'd said, only to find out, nope, that's an observational study, or that's a prospective cohort study, doesn't prove anything. But I've never heard of the literally hundreds of hours of vegan videos I've watched, trying to understand their argument, trying to understand what they're saying. I've never heard a vegan influencer, a vegan doctor, a vegan cardiologist. I have never heard one of them say that meat is addictive. Have y'all? Have you ever heard that? Oh, yeah, I agree with Hascat. Dairy's addictive, 100%. Yes, sugar's addictive, and dairy can be addictive because we know, if you've studied nutrition, you know that dairy, milk, and cheeses contain something called casomorphin, which is addictive. That's one of the reasons babies root so aggressively to get to the breast to latch on, is because they're going to get that casomorphin hit. They need the nutrition, but babies are kind of lazy. They just lay around and sleep. But buddy, after about 3 days of breastfeeding, that baby's jonesing for the casomorphins. And so, yes, definitely milk and dairy is addictive. 100%. Yes. Sugar. We got tons of research that sugar is addictive. Tons of research showing that. We've got PET scans showing the human brain light up like somebody's took a hit of crack cocaine when they eat a big bolus or drink a big bolus of sugar. It lights up the exact same parts of the human brain that an addictive drug lights up. Yeah. But meat is addictive. I'm sorry, but that's maybe if he had only said it one time, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. And I would say, I think he misspoke. I don't think he meant that. But he said it 3, if not 4 times, didn't he? You saw the interview, and it's still on the Fox News website. You can go back and watch it again. Either 3 times or 4 times, he said very blatantly that the babies will get addicted to meat. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know of any physiological pathway in the infant brain, the toddler brain, the child brain, where they get addicted to anything that's in meat. I do not know what he's talking about. I feel like, and I want to be very careful because I want to be respectful of Dr. Siegel. Ames says he's just plain ignorant about nutrition and metabolic health. Now, I think that's true. And let me be very clear. When I use the word ignorant, I'm not using it in a derogatory fashion. The actual definition of the word ignorant means that you just currently don't know about something. If you're ignorant of some fact, like if you started coming at me with nuclear physics, I would be ignorant. I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I also wouldn't venture to have an opinion like Dr. Siegel. I'd be like, dude, I don't know nothing about nuclear physics. I don't have no opinion on that. But Dr. Siegel thought, I guess he's not aware of his ignorance. I call this an island of ignorance in your sea of knowledge. And we found Dr. Siegel's island of ignorance, did we not? But I think Dr. Siegel's still educable. He's a very intelligent man. Got a very distinguished career. Got a bunch of stuff wrong back in the 2020 time period with the virus and the jabby jabs. Got a bunch of stuff wrong there. But I think he's educable. I think we could teach him about the benefits of eating meat and eggs, the benefits of a meat-heavy keto diet or a ketovore diet or a carnivore diet. I think he can still learn. He may not want to learn, but I think he's still educable. But right now, he's just currently ignorant. And if Dr. Siegel, I'm sure you don't watch my YouTube channel. Obviously, you don't, or you wouldn't have said that stupid shit you said on Fox News. But if you are watching this, I'm not being derogatory in any way. I have a lot of respect for you. I know you've been a doctor for more years than I have. I think he's 67 years old. I think that's right. I want you to, but please, I would caution you, Dr. Siegel. There are a lot of people these days, a lot of increasing number of people who take human nutrition very, very seriously. And you can't just come on a national news program anymore and just kind of ad lib and just say the first thing that comes to mind, or to say something that's completely ignorant, like babies will get addicted to red meat. You can't do that in 2025 anymore. People just won't tolerate that. 2020 woke a lot of people up, and just because somebody says something on TV, they're not going to blindly believe it anymore. And so I would highly advise, with all due respect, because you are my elder, that you go back to the drawing board and do a little research on eating meat, and then come back on Fox News. And I actually would love to have a discussion with Dr. Siegel, either on this YouTube channel, or maybe the Fox producer could set up, we could have a sit down conversation and just go over some of the things he said in his interview, because it's concerning that a board certified internal medicine doctor truly believes in his heart of heart that red meat's addictive. That's really worrisome. And so I would love to have a chance to sit down with him, either on this YouTube channel, and I promise I'll be as polite. I'll be a Southern gentleman if you'll come on my YouTube channel, Dr. Siegel. Or if the Fox News producer thinks that would be good TV, we can appear together on Fox News and we can talk about this. But I think it's 4 things you said that I completely disagree with. You said meat is addictive, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard said about meat ever. Like, I've never heard a vegan doctor, a vegan influencer say something that ignorant. And I've heard them say some pretty ignorant stuff. You think that meat is inflammatory. The research and the tens of thousands of anecdotal cases show that to be clearly false. You believe that meat causes diabetes. I'm assuming you mean type 2 diabetes. This has been thoroughly disproven. I know the study you're talking about. I've read that study. That study's been thoroughly debunked. There's no way that eating red meat causes type 2 diabetes. And then you believe that red meat causes heart disease. Again, there's no research proving that. And you believe that red meat causes cancer. Again, no research proving that on planet Earth. That research does not exist. So I'd love to have a conversation, and you could catch me up to speed. I'm sure Dr. Siegel knows way more than me about taking care of adult patients with adult diseases that he may know more about than me. I'm sure he's much smarter than me in many areas of adult medicine, because he's board certified internal medicine. But when it comes to feeding children and feeding babies and feeding adult humans nutrition, you probably ought to from now on just say no comment if they ask you about nutrition until you do some research. All right, guys, tell me in the comments, am I off base here? Am I being too rough on Dr. Siegel? Am I giving him a pass that I shouldn't? I want to know. Tell me in the comments. And then also, I'm ready to answer some of your questions. And I would really love it if today we could keep the questions on a carnivore diet. And it can be a carnivore diet for babies who are starting to cut teeth and are starting to eat solid food. It can be a carnivore diet for toddlers, carnivore diet for children, carnivore diet for teenagers, or even a carnivore diet for adults. I'm happy to answer questions about any of those things. And then again, let me say, if you have a friend or a family member who has a baby or a toddler or a child, please share this video with them, because I do not want young parents. I'm sick and tired of young parents being propagandized too by Kellogg's and General Mills and Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. I'm sick and tired of it. Cereal is not healthy for babies. Cereal is poverty food with a lot of factory-made vitamins and minerals added to it because the grains don't come with vitamins and minerals. And then with a dose of glyphosate for no extra charge. Parents need to know better than this. And so if you know a young couple, a young parent, please share this video with them. They need to understand what the nutrition that their baby or their toddler or child needs. Okay. And Beckett and Bonnie are here today. You might hear them making some noise in the background. I might bring them on here and let you guys take a look at them and ask them some questions because they're pretty damn smart. And last time we measured them on the growth curve, they're both above the 99th percentile for height. Now, I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'3", but Nisha's very petite. She's 5'1". So you can't really say, oh, it's genetic. I mean, Beckett's he falls at 105% on the height percentile for kids his age. Bonnie falls on the 120th percentile for height. And they both fall right in about the 50 to 60% percentile for weight. So they're not they don't have type 2 diabetes, which you guys, if you watch me often, you know there's an epidemic of type 2 diabetes in children. That didn't used to be a thing. So Dr. Siegel, back when people ate mostly meat, there was no such thing as childhood type 2 diabetes. But now that all the kids are eating the grains and the puffs and the wheat, rice, oats, corn, soybean, and all the ultra processed crap, we've got an epidemic of type 2 diabetes in children. So I don't think it's the meat that's causing that, because the average kid doesn't get much red meat. Let's see if we got any questions. If you have a question for me, put 3 capital Q's in a row so I'll know it's a question and not a comment. And yeah, this comment from Joss. Type 2 diabetes was not even really a thing in adults until the 1980s. And that's absolutely true. Now, in older adults, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, some of them would have type 2 diabetes. But an adult in their 20s or 30s or even early 40s, you never saw an adult with type 2 diabetes back in 2000, 2001, when I was first starting to see patients. Type 2 diabetes was in old, fat people. That's who had type 2 diabetes. No young person in their 20s had type 2 diabetes back in 2000, 2001, 2002. Just wasn't a thing. But now, Vanderbilt University has a special endocrinology clinic now in Nashville, Tennessee, to see children with type 2 diabetes and children with fatty liver. You should call Vanderbilt and say, hey, when did you start? What year did you start the special clinic for children with type 2 diabetes and fatty liver? What year did you start that clinic? And they'll say, I don't know the answer to that, but they'll probably say 2021, 2020, 2022, somewhere in there. And then say, well, how come you didn't have a clinic for type 2 diabetes before then? Like back in the 1990s. Why didn't you have a type 2 diabetes clinic for children back then? And watch them go, what about 1980, 1970? Y'all didn't have a pediatric type 2 diabetes clinic? Why not? Because it didn't exist. Okay, here's a question from Tojo. Why is the carnivore diet cause triglycerides to rise? So the carnivore diet does not cause triglycerides to rise. I'm not sure where that's coming from. I personally have seen at least 1,000 people's lab work before and after. Before they started carnivore, they would have triglycerides of 200, 300, 400, sometimes 900 or 1,000. And then after 90 days on carnivore, their triglycerides would be well under 150. I've never seen somebody their triglycerides go up when they're eating a carnivore diet. I've not seen that. I don't think I've seen it a single time. If I have seen it, I've seen it, I could count on one hand. And then invariably, when I start asking them about their carnivore diet, it's not 100% meat and eggs. They've added back avocados and other things. And then one person, still their triglycerides came down, but they had a verified genetic hypertriglyceridemia genetic condition but still their triglycerides went from 2,100 down to 800 on a carnivore diet. Even their triglycerides went down, but they didn't come down to normal because they had a documented triglyceride genetic defect in how their body metabolizes triglycerides. If anybody has high triglycerides, just go on a diet of beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Do it for 90 days and recheck your triglycerides. Tell me in the comments right now, how many of you guys used to have high triglycerides, and now after at least 90 days of high meat-heavy keto or ketovore or just carnivore, do you now have normal triglycerides? Just watch the comments fly by. All right, let's see if I can find. Yeah, okay, here's a good question for, where'd it go? Dang it, you guys, those questions are coming in fast. Oh, yes, here it is. Okay, this is from Fieldy Schnultz. Do you still advocate for keto, low-carb lifestyles, or are you 100% just for carnivore? So I have basically come up with what I call a proper human diet, and it is a spectrum of diets. I was talking on Fox News and on NBC and in the Wall Street Journal about a carnivore diet. That's only one option on the proper human diet spectrum. A proper human diet spectrum ranges from low carb with real whole one ingredient natural foods that are not wheat, rice, oats, and corn, and beans and peas. Low carb, under 100 total grams of carbs a day. That's on the proper human diet spectrum. And then from 20 to 50 grams of carbs a day, that's keto or keto-ish. That's on the proper human diet spectrum. If you cut the carbs more, that's ketovore. If you cut all the carbs out, that's carnivore. All those are on a proper human diet spectrum. And depending on your age, what your medical conditions are, how metabolically sick you are, how sedentary you are, how overweight you are, any of those dietary options, low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore, could be perfect for you. I'm a big advocate of the carnivore diet, but I don't think that's the only dietary option for human beings. Okay. And if you want to get my proper human diet guidebook, there's a link down in the show notes on my on the YouTube video. You can get a free copy. I'll email it to you, and you can see the full spectrum of a proper human diet. But I talk about carnivore more than the other options now. I used to talk about keto more, but carnivore is more popular. That's what most people have the questions about. So that's what I talk about. But yeah, if you eat a low carb diet that's full of meat and eggs and fish with some low carb vegetables, a few nuts, a few berries, that's perfectly healthy and fine for the vast majority of people. Some people have to tighten it up to keto. They have to cut the carbs even more. That's for people who have weight to lose or type 2 diabetes to reverse, fatty liver to get rid of. And there's some people like me that even 20 to 50 total grams of carbohydrates a day, they won't lose as much weight as they want to lose. And when we say lose weight, we mean lose fat, right? Or they can't completely reverse their type 2 diabetes with keto. They have to go carnivore. And then the A1C comes on down back to normal. And they've reversed their type 2 diabetes completely. Now, there are some carnivore purists out there that are like, oh, don't eat anything but meat and eggs and fish. And some people, even more purists, are like, only eat red meat, nothing else ever. I don't agree with that. I think that humans are built to eat various things. We are omnivores, technically. That's how the animal biologist would kind of categorize us. I think we're facultative carnivores, meaning that we can eat other stuff if we're starving. But if we want to enjoy optimal health, then we have to eat mostly meat. Meat, eggs, fish. And if you eat fish or seafood, that's fine, but don't bread it and don't fry it in a vegetable seed oil. There you go. This is from Sylvia. Dr. Berry, what lowers blood pressure naturally instead of taking meds? Eating a very, very low carbohydrate diet. If you have high blood pressure, I've got videos on my YouTube channel. Go keto. And when I say keto, I have to say real whole food, one ingredient keto, because people have been, again, propagandized by the marketing. They think that the bread at the supermarket that says keto on it, they think that's keto. It's not keto. That's marketing. There is no such thing as keto bread, keto pancakes, keto cookies. None of that crap's real. That's a commodity that's being marketed to you to try to get into your wallet. That's all that is. Okay. No such thing as keto bread. It's impossible. So some people have to go completely carnivore like me. I was pre-diabetic and weighed 297 pounds. I had to go carnivore and stay carnivore in order to stay at about 225 pounds at 6'3" and to have an A1C of 5.5, 5.4. I have to stay carnivore. And every now and then I'll cheat on carnivore with keto. We go out to a restaurant, I'll have some of Nisha's Brussels sprouts, or I'll have some of her whatever little vegetable she eats sometimes. And she's ketovore. She eats a few vegetables. Mainly it's garlic and onion for seasoning, but and occasionally a tomato, but she still eats mostly meat. So I don't understand how people, I know exactly how humans got so confused. All the marketing, all the money to be made by big food and big pharma. That's exactly how we got confused. You know that's true, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's Luke Cartwright. He says, do you have any recommendations of convenient ketovore foods to stash in the diaper bag for babies and toddlers while running errands? Yeah. We just got back from Dollywood. And I'll tell you, we had a goodie bag that we took for the 5.5-hour road trip. And I'll tell you what we had in it. We had bacon that we had cooked up in a Ziploc bag. We had some scrambled eggs that we had cooked up in a Ziploc bag that babies just grab and eat it with their fingers like humans have done for thousands of years. We had some cashews. We had some pork skins or meat rinds. And we had some sparkling water that they drink. And so when they got hungry, that was what they had to choose from. There were no little Gerber, little crunchy bites that were full of glyphosate. There were no Cheerios. There were no Lucky Charms. There were no Fruit Loops. We don't have that in our house, and we sure the hell didn't have it in the truck for a 5.5-hour ride to Dollywood. They ate real food. Okay? So yeah, those are the things I would put in a diaper bag. There's many other options. Nisha has so many ketovore food options for babies and for adults on her YouTube channel. Just type in her name, Neisha, and I think she's the most popular Nisha on YouTube, but you'll be able to find her channel that way. She's got tons of videos that'll help parents understand keto, ketovore, and carnivore for your baby, for your toddler, for your child. Let me find another question or two here. So here's Mike. I am 3 months on the Lion diet, but still have acne and eczema. When do skin issues tend to get better? So many skin conditions, some of them are autoimmune, and some of them are hormonally regulated. Acne for sure is hormonally regulated. And eczema sometimes can have a hormonal component as well, plus an inflammatory component. I'll tell you, Mike, you're one of the unlucky ones. The vast majority of people after 3 months on carnivore, much less Lion diet, which is ruminant meat only, like cow, goat, and sheep. Most people's eczema is completely gone after 90 days of carnivore. And I'll just tell you, any parents watching this, any grandparents, if you have a young child or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew who has eczema, listen to me. Eczema can be severe, and doctors will throw every high copay prescription at that baby in the pharmacy. Put that baby on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 90 days and watch what happens to the eczema. Okay? You can try the vegan diet if you want to, but your baby's going to suffer from that. You can try to feed them all the little puffs and all the little Kellogg's and General Mills and Post, but your baby's going to suffer from that. But if you put that baby or that child or that toddler on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 90 days, they can eat as much as they want, eat when they're hungry. You can give them little beef, butter, bacon, and egg snacks. Watch what happens to the eczema. A carnivore diet clears up childhood eczema better than any prescription in the pharmacy. I have seen this in at least 1,000 babies and toddlers and children, some with severe body-wide eczema that was so severe it just made your heart break to look at the poor little kid 90 days beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, it's so much better. Even meat heavy keto is going to help tremendously, because the vast majority of the time it's the grains causing the eczema. It's the grains and the beans, legumes. That's what's causing it most of the time. Not all the time. Sometimes you have to eliminate even more stuff, and that's why you go straight carnivore. And then after 90 days of carnivore and the eczema is either completely gone or 99% better, then you can start adding back in foods to the child's diet one at a time and see, does the eczema flare back up? So you could add back in avocados. Is that okay? Okay. You can add back in blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. And as long as the eczema stays gone, you know that's a safe food for them. And I know parents who have done this, and they wound up being able to add back 50 or 60 naturally occurring real whole foods that actually occur in nature. So their child no longer has the severe crippling eczema, but they have basically a low carb diet or a keto-ish diet that they can eat 100 different things and not have eczema. And I tell you, just imagine if you were a child and just had your face covered with eczema, having to put all these creams and lotions and take pills, and then nothing's helping. Beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, guys. I'm just telling you, for eczema. And then so for acne, it's going to take longer. And if the eczema in an adult, which I'm assuming Mike's an adult, then the eczema is going to have a hormonal component. That can take up to 6 to 9 months, Mike, because your hormones are still adjusting. That's why it's not gone yet. But in kids, oh man, it works almost like magic, but it's not magic. It's physiology. Let's see if we got one more. Okay, now here's a good question. Listen to this carefully, because a lot of people out there think that carnivore is a weight loss diet. Now, the reason they think that is because a lot of people, most people probably, go on keto to lose weight, or go on ketovore to lose weight, or go on carnivore to lose weight. Because if you are overweight or obese or severely obese, you will lose weight on keto or carnivore. Yes, you absolutely will, because you'll get rid of all the unhealthy fat that you've got stored. But Melissa's husband's 5'10" and 135 pounds. And Melissa does not want him to lose any more weight. And so she's seen how popular the carnivore diet is for weight loss, and she's concerned. She's like, I don't want my husband to lose more weight. He's too skinny anyway. But it's not going to make him lose weight, Melissa. He doesn't need to lose weight. The carnivore diet, just like the keto diet, is a weight optimization diet. He may actually gain 5 or 10 pounds of muscle if he adopts a carnivore diet. If he eats nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 90 days, not only is his high blood pressure going to come down, he'll probably put on 5 to 10 pounds of just naturally occurring muscle. He's not going to gain any fat, so you can tell your husband not to worry about that. But he's not going to lose more weight. He doesn't have weight to lose. He's already at a healthy body fat percentage right now. Also, his PAD is going to get better too. Try it for 90 days, Melissa. I promise, he needs to eat when he's hungry and eat until he's full. He can eat 2 times a day or 3 times a day, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and watch his blood pressure come down, watch his PAD symptoms get better, and watch him stay 135 or maybe go to 140. That's what's going to happen in 30 days, in 90 days. Yep, give it a try. All right, guys, that's it. Please, if you know somebody that's scared to death to feed their baby or grandbaby or niece or nephew meat, please share this video with them. Share it on your social media. If you are a young parent or a grandparent and you need some support, you believe that feeding your baby meat and eggs is good for them and healthy, but nobody else in your house or your community believes that's true, you can join our community. We have hundreds of young parents and many hundreds of grandparents who are feeding their children and their grandchildren a proper human diet with lots of meat and eggs. And like literally, if nobody in your house believes in this diet, join our community. It's like having a Facebook group, but without the Facebook. There's a link down in the show notes. You can join our community. I'm going to be live in the community at 5 p.m. Central and 6 p.m. Central today So in 50 minutes, I'm going to be live inside of the private community. And instead of 3,500 people asking me questions, there'll be 100, 150. So if you've got questions about feeding your baby, your toddler, your child meat and eggs, I'll see you in an hour. Just join our community and you can ask all your questions. Plus, you've got this Facebook group like feeling thing without the Facebook, because we never sell your information, where you can reach out to the other members of the community and say, hey, who's got a toddler they're feeding carnivore or keto or low carb? There's hundreds of parents and grandparents in there right now that you can make friends with and share your stories. They can tell you the tips and tricks that work for them, and they can also tell you what didn't work for them. And so if you need that level of support, join our community. There's a link in the show notes. I'll see you in 50 minutes, or I'll see you the next time I'm live on social media. But in the meantime, feed those babies and toddlers, children meat and eggs, because that is the most nutrient-dense food you can feed them. And if you're watching from Fox News, I'd love to come back on and debate or discuss with Dr. Siegel. And if Dr. Siegel, if you're watching, please don't talk about nutrition until you've done a little more research. See you later, guys.